And also, let's all remember when we did Whitney Houston, her Christmas album was my favorite album by her.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here. It's a Patreon week. We are talking about the Monkees, 60s pop, 13 studio albums to rank. I definitely knew all the hits. I had a greatest hits record on vinyl growing up. I've listened to a handful of the early records at some point. I don't really remember which ones. So I'm somewhat familiar. How about you guys?
Knew the hits. I knew they sucked. My dad taught me to hate them. My dad hated the Monkees and unkept, floppy, unstyled hair. And I knew I was going to hate it going in. And I don't even feel like saving the spoilers. I hated this. I'm so unhappy right now. I got so much credit and aplomb from the Patreon community for Cramtober and all the awesome artists. I just gave them, Husker Du and Echo and the Bunnymen and all the shit they wanted. And this is how they repay me. Right around Christmas time, I had to listen to 13 goddamn Monkees albums. This was hell. I'm unhappy.
Well, it should be a great episode. I'm very excited. I knew exactly 3 Monkees songs. Last Train to Clarksdale, Clarksville, whatever the hell it is. Daydream Believer. I'm a Believer. I've never seen an episode of the Monkees. I don't recall ever hearing any other Monkey song. It's not like they play them on the radio or anything. So I'm completely unfamiliar with the Monkees.
You must have known Pleasant Valley Sunday.
Yeah, I should have. I had no recollection of ever hearing it when I heard it this week. Just
The best thing the Monkees have ever done is when this will be the only thing I have nice to say about Davy Jones is when he has that cameo playing the high school dance in the Brady Bunch movie from 1995 and they like really grunge up the song Girl or whatever. It's badass. It's the best he's ever sounded. It's the best he's ever looked or performed. I hate him so much. I'm just getting started.
I was familiar with a bunch of Michael Nesmith solo stuff, so like I'm going like backwards now. So it's weird. It was a weird week.
All right, we're going to knock out the bottom 3 quickly here at the beginning, and then we'll do the top 10 one by one.
This will be easily the most contrast between Jason and myself. Like Three Dog Night was nothing compared to what's about to happen.
All right, let me go first then. I'll just get me out of the way, and then you guys can just like clash. It'll be great. It'll be brilliant theater. All right, for my bottom 3, bottom's got to be Pool It. It stinks. It was a weird idea to get them back together and make a new album with new songs. That's gonna be Cram's number 1. It kind of sounds like Chicago, like in the Peter Cetera era. Like it's real fake sounding. There's no Michael Nesmith. And then like they didn't even bring in like great players to like help out. It's just like a bunch of schmoes and schmucks. So not a great one. They didn't even bring in like big songwriters. Like where's like Diane Warren or something, or Peter Cetera? Like why doesn't he write them a song? I don't know. It just seems like a weird thing to do. Up next, I got, and Pool It's at 2 stars. We'll start off with 2 stars for Pool It. And then we're going to go to Christmas Party, which that's good. That's a good sign that it's near the bottom here. You always want the Christmas and the novelty albums near the bottom. That shows that you got a decent discography. This one's 3 stars. It is a Christmas album, and I don't know, it's about it. It was produced by Adam Schlesinger from Fountains of Wayne, who's great. So it sounds good. The production's good, but I'm just, it's a Christmas album. I don't care. And then next will be Just Us, which it's not as bad as I would have thought for mid-90s Monkees album. But the best song is the remake of Circle Sky, and that's kind of pointless. So I don't know, it just seems another weird album like Pull It that like doesn't need to exist. It just doesn't add anything new to the band. So I don't know why it exists. So it's 2.5 stars for the Christmas album in Just Us.
I'll be talking about all three of those albums way later. This is a classic case of the less they sound like the Monkees, the more I'm going to like it. Because I hate this band. And also, let's all remember when we did Whitney Houston, her Christmas album was my favorite album by her. Birds and the Bees and the Monkees is my number 13, and I got it at 1.5 stars. So we're starting off pretty good. No 1-star reviews here. They're competent. Davy's voice on Dream World is so awful. Just get ready. I'm gonna let's get a little dinger counter graphic every time I talk about how Davy Jones' voice just pisses me off. Like, does that like he's trying to be Bob Dylan and John Lennon like all in one motion. It's so shitty. I hate it. Auntie's Municipal Court. That one's kind of nice and loose. And I like the orchestral quality on We Were Made for Each Other. Another song ruined by Davy Jones. And the stuff on this album is just really flat. Their shit is just so unexciting and prudish and boring and limp. Daydream Believer, I never really liked it. I hate his voice on it. There's 3 for Davy. I hate him. Righting Wrongs is the exception on this album. It's this cool, dark, moody little like piano piece by Michael. Michael's the best one of this group. Sometimes I think Micky sounds pretty good singing, but Michael Nesmith's definitely got the most talent. He's the most interesting performer, and he's got the best feel. The poster I really hate. Davy Jones sounds terrible on it. And Valerie, really obnoxious just in the chorus screaming Valerie, but that guitar part rules. That's all I got to say. It's number 13, 1.5. Number 12, the debut, Monkees. Feel like it's just goofy. I hate the opening track. I hate anytime a band announces themselves and labels themselves in the song. How can your first song in your first album is, hey, hey, we're the Monkees, we're monkeying around? Like, shut the fuck up. It's so lame. It's the 60s now. They are like a decade behind the times. Clapton is out here like doing this psychedelic soloing. Hendrix is around. They sound so shitty. They're trying to be the Beatles. I hate it. It's vapid, boring Beach Boy and Beatles wannabe boy band music. I want to be free. It's kind of pretty. And everyone's like, oh, their early shit has like this psychedelic quality to it. No, it doesn't. Psychedelia is a friggin' state of mind. It's a spiritual presence. These friggin' losers are just having organ and shit and copying a little bit of the guitar licks from Managata to Vita. I hate it. Their harmonies are nice. They have decent voices when they do that. Papa Jean's Blue is like, okay, it's got a little bit of a Simon and Garfunkel feel. But of all the shit going around in this renaissance of music, how are the Monkees getting any credit at all? They suck. It's garbage. I think it's really annoying. It's this perky, jangly, and none of it even sounds good. Like the fact that like Zeppelin 3 comes out a few years after this, it's light years apart. I don't get it. Last Train to Clarksville is such a knockoff of Help and 19th Nervous Breakdown just shoved into one song. It's embarrassing for them. 1.5 for that. The next one, I've got Monkees Present, or then they just name everyone that's not Michael, I believe. Little Girl is interesting, kind of in a step in a new direction, but at the same time, how many times are they going to write songs about girls or use the word girl or just the word girl? It's like little girl, young girl, American girl, whatever. It's really annoying. This one, actually, If I Knew, is one of the Davy tracks I can take the most when he's kind of quiet and delicate. Bye Bye Baby Bye is whatever. Don't think it's very interesting. They just have no feeling or mental stimulation. It's just anonymous. Like, yeah, Jason's going to harp up like, oh, they write good melodies. Sure, I'll give them that. But they're not catchy. Their songs don't build to anything. They just come up with a tune as if they're whistling in traffic on their way to work, and they just stretch it out for 2.5 minutes. Thank God only 2.5 minutes. And thank God these albums are only 25 minutes long. Oklahoma Backroom Dancer may be my favorite on the album. And those are my bottom 3.
All right. Well, now that we all know that Cram is just trolling, we can ignore him the rest of the video.
I give everyone credit.
You can't honestly think that those records are worse than Just Us and Pull It.
It's
not possible.
No, so much more interesting. So I thought my ears were bleeding, dude. It sucks. I can't stand it. This makes me want to sit down and split a meat lover's pizza with Billy Joel and have him serenade me while his mouth is full of meatballs and bacon. I don't want anything to do with the Monkees ever again.
It also just shows like how little understanding you have of the 60s pre the like hippies and Haight-Ashbury and stuff. Like everything that was going on before the stuff that they played on classic rock. Like it's all this. It's all light. It's all breezy, airy pop.
And all better than this crap.
You can't think that you can't discredit the Monkees records for how they sound when they sound like everything else happening at the same time.
It sounds like they are monkeys and someone stepped on their tails while they were singing. The voices are so annoying, Jason.
No. All right. I wish I could be super positive right now, but I do have to get through some negativity first. My number 13 is actually Just Us, which Pull It is not a good record. I think this one is a lot worse than Pull It. I think this record is horrifically bad. Michael Nesmith comes back. They do a remake of Circle Sky, which completely sucks. The mix is awful. Mike Nesmith sounds horrible on it. And then he doesn't sing again on the rest of the record, thank God. The record sounds so trashy. It alternates between these like crappy 90s distorted guitar tones and these lame reverb-soaked acoustic guitars. You get a couple like passable songs from Micky Dolenz. He's got this like doo-woppy Elvis mashup thing called Unlucky Stars. And he's got a song called It's My Life. Like I said, they're just barely passable. They're mediocre, but they're by far the best things here. Admiral Mike, possibly the worst thing in their whole catalog. Regional Girl is terrible. The lyrics are stupid. The synth solo on Runaway from Life is just mind-bogglingly bad. It's a horrible record. I have it at a 0.5 star. I think it is absolute trash. I'll get to the good stuff. I like the Monkees a lot. My number 12 is Pull It, which, is it a good record? No. Super cheesy, super 80s, but it's also kind of fun. I actually think Micky Dolenz sounds pretty fantastic on it. I think his voice is in great shape on it. Heart and Soul is pretty decent. They cover Reckless Eric's I'd Go the Whole Wide World, and they cover Ian Hunter Every Step of the Way, which is weird, but awesome. Some of the other Davy Jones tracks on the record are pretty corny, though. Long Way Home is kind of a rough one. Peter Tork's song Getting It sounds like Depeche Mode if they were fronted by Ringo Starr, which is really weird. I'll Love You Forever is a really lame track. She's Moving In with Rico is terrible. But I think even at its worst, this record is sort of fun, and I think it's pretty melodic. So yeah, it kind of sucks, but I also don't mind it completely, and I think it's way, way better than Just Us, so I've got it at 2 stars. My number 11 is the Christmas album Christmas Party from 2018. I kind of wish they had just gone out with Good Time, and, you know, having this as the punctuation on your career is, I don't think the best way to go out. I guess they were trying to capitalize on the success of Good Time and put out another record, but I don't know. I think it's a weird mix of songs. I don't think Schlesinger's production on it is very good. It doesn't have any sort of like holiday warmth to it. It doesn't sound like Christmas time at all. And then you've got Peter Tork's vocals on Angels We Have Heard on High, which are so obviously, like, you can just hear the pitch correction just like jerking his voice around. It sounds so weird. Like, just why? Why are we doing this? If you can't sing, just don't. Like, I don't know. It's bad. The whole thing's not terrible, but just there's so many other better Christmas records, and you only got a month of the year to listen to Christmas music. So can't imagine wanting to put this one on over many others. So 2.5 stars for that one.
Okay, I thought it was delightfully unhinged from both of you. Loved it. My number 10, I got Changes from 1970. This is the one, well, Peter Tork's gone. Michael Nesmith leaves before this album. So it's just down to Micky and Davy. And it gets a little problematic with them. All the songs except Midnight Train are written by outside songwriters, mostly Jeff Barry and Andy Kim, who Jeff Barry had a bunch of hits. Do a Diddy Diddy, Da Do Ron Ron, Then He Kissed Me, Be My Baby, Chapel of Love, River Deep Mountain High. He co-wrote Sugar Sugar with Andy Kim, who had a couple hits of his own. Rock Me Gently, I think would come around 1970. So two good songwriters, but there's just no like monkiness to this album. It just feels like Micky doing the songs of somebody else. Probably Cramsey's number one. Oh My My is pretty good, and I think Micky sounds great. He's a very strong lead singer. He can change his voice around. He's very versatile. Covers a lot of different genres. He can do. Oh My My has like this nice R&B infusion, which you hear a little bit from him, but he really kind of lays it on thick there. Pretty decent electric guitar line as well. But Davy Jones, and I'm mostly with Cramser, like Davy Jones is pretty bad most of the time. Usually like I'm digging these records, and then like a Davy Jones song comes on, it's like screeching halt. It's like, ooh. And at this point, I don't think Davy Jones really contributes anything to the band. So all his songs, and there's 4 of them that he sings, are inferior to the Micky Dolenz ones. And you're really missing Michael Nesmith's country rock, a little more experimental. You're missing Peter Tork's stuff as well. So this one's only 3 stars for me, low 3 stars. It's okay, but at this point, there's not much left of the Monkees. All the talent I think has left the band for the most part.
I love you so much for agreeing with me on Davy. He's easily probably the worst singer that we've covered on this channel so far. Yeah, even the song that Eddie Van Halen sings, I think is better than anything Davy Jones has ever done. My number 10 is Head soundtrack album. I wanted to put it at number 1 because it has a lot of songs that are just clips, or tracks that are just clips from the movie, which let me escape the Monkees a little bit. I do love Porpoise song. I think it's pretty magical. And did I just say love? I definitely don't love it. I barely like a few elements of this entire discography. Then you get Diddy Diego, which is just inviting the criticism that these are just some lame ass dudes. Like, why even bring that on? I generally hate when bands label themselves, and they start doing it again. I do like Circle Sky a little bit. It's one of their heavier tracks. I like this version a little bit more than the one that they did in the 90s. Can You Dig It is kind of cool. My favorite Porpoise song's probably my favorite, but I like As We Go Along, which is pretty chill. It's got just kind of like a really nice, comfortable, breezy, rustic kind of quality. And Daddy's song, good God, Davy Jones is just terrible on it. So it's kind of in and out. You get a lot of little breaks with the little clips from the movies, but I am generously going up to 2 stars for Head.
All right. Well, the way you were talking, I wasn't sure that we would even get to 2 stars. So, all right. My number 10 is Changes. I'm with Joe on that. They're down to Dolenz and Jones, like he said. They're just basically trying to fill out the contract. They only sing on the record. They don't play instruments. So kind of back to the way things were at the beginning of the band. The whole thing feels pretty tired, out of gas, however you want to put it. Not to say it's worthless, though. I think through the sleepiness, there's some great songs, and some that even kind of like work well with this sort of like looming sense of sadness and impending doom, I guess you could say. Ticket on a Ferry Ride, I think, is an amazing song. Tell Me Love, I think, is pretty good too. Missing Nesmith, I think, really does hurt. He really kind of balanced things out between the, you had Dolenz singing all the rock tunes and Davy singing all the pop stuff, and he brought this like extra third dimension to the band with his kind of like country rock stuff, and that's missing here. Do You Feel It Too? I think probably the best Davy song on the record. I've got no problem with Davy Jones. I mean, I understand the criticism. He is kind of like, it's fluff, but like, it's enjoyable fluff. I think he's a decent singer. I don't have any problem with his voice. Some of the newly incorporated 70s isms on this record don't go over too well. You've got like funky wah guitar on I Love You Better, and it just does not work. I don't know. It feels like what it was. It feels like an obligation. It feels like the end of the road for the band and things just coming to a close. So again, not horrible. 3 stars, but yeah, not the best.
Okay. My number 9 is going to be not the newest one, the newest all original Monkees comeback, Good Times, which I had an okay time listening to Good Times. I think I do like, Adam Schlesinger, his production, very good. I love Fountains of Wayne. And you can tell he has an appreciation for the Monkees, which is good. But I don't know. I never really liked these comeback albums that much. And I was a little disappointed with the songs. They got a bunch of outside songwriters, Rivers Cuomo and Harry Nilsson. They do Good Times. Andy Partridge, Schlesinger, Ben Gibbard, Neil Diamond, Noel Gallagher, and Paul Weller. Birth of an Accidental Hipster. You got a obligatory Goff and King. Their version of Wasn't Born to Follow. Can't Touch the Birds, though, so I don't really see the point in doing it. And they sound old, and they sound a little tired. And I don't know. I just don't see the need for a comeback album in the 2000s. They did a comeback album in the 90s, and they did one in the 80s. And they're all kind of forgettable and inessential to me. It's nice, it's fine. I'm sure it made them some money, but I don't know. I didn't quite get as much out of this as the critics and everyone else seems to. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just mean and cranky.
I think you have a bias toward those late period comeback albums with the aging rock star, because you're right. A lot of times they aren't very good, but we've come across some good ones, and you're still like, no, I don't accept it. But that's fine. Good Times, not good. But it is one of my more favorite Monkees records because it doesn't sound like the shitty, fluffy 60s stuff they do. But we're here to talk about number 9, Instant Replay, 2 stars. Through the Looking Glass is okay. I like the piano tone. Rhymes and melodies are just so predictable. Fluff is a good choice of words, but it's not even like enjoyable fluff. And I don't get how Jason can like adore all of this fluff, but like compartmentalizes, like can't get into 80s fluff, doesn't like current fluff. Like, everything's just, you complain about a lot of new stuff, like the new Wolf Alice album from last year. You're like, it's just really bland. This is to me just the same way. It's just bland. I can't do it. They're not very creative. Don't Listen to Linda is actually a pretty song, but Davy Jones sings it and ruins it. At this point, there's 7 albums in, and it's the same old crap. They haven't really grown at all. They're not playing off, like, it doesn't even seem like they're interested in music, like being musicians. They don't expand. They're not feeding off of anything around them. They're just like, they know what makes the money, and they have a TV show, and they just chug it out. It's really annoying. Don't Wait for Me is one of the better tracks here. I like the country kind of style warmth from Michael. But like there's just an absence of a singular vision or like artistic statement. There's no identity or character other than just like so stupid. I like the drums and the bass. Will say some of the bass work on these early albums is quite enjoyable, but Davy Jones just ruins everything for me. Teardrop City is the most I Want to Be in the Beatles song I've ever heard written. It's so annoying. There's no balance. It's so random song to song. Like you saying like it, having Michael in there balances it out. And it's true for like an enjoyment factor. Like his stuff is the most enjoyable, but it just seems like a completely different band when he is like performing. Like I don't get it. There's nothing. Number 2 stars still.
Well, if you want to know the difference between 60s fluff and 80s and present day fluff, it's in the songwriting. The songs in the 60s, the pop songs in the 60s were so much more harmonically interesting. The chord changes are so cool and good. The melodies are strong. It's just better written music. That's all there is to it.
With the Monkees. The Monkees.
They're not
the Monkees.
You've got Goffin and King writing songs. You got Neil Diamond writing songs. These are great, great songs.
I will take Cyndi Lauper over the Monkees every day of the week.
That's silly. All right.
There's emotion and feeling in those songs. There's nothing here.
My number 9 is Good Times. So lining up with Joe still. I do think there's a point to it, though. I don't entirely agree with Joe. I think, this is how you do a Monkees comeback record in 2016. You've got a mix of songs by the band. You've got some like classic writers. I think they're pulling a couple of these tracks from the past. Obviously, the Davy Jones song track is not new. Goffin and King tunes, Neil Diamond song. But then you get all these other like writers, people that they inspired. So it's like this full circle thing. You've got people writing songs for them, like Ben Gibbard, like Rivers Cuomo, and Andy Partridge, and Noel Gallagher, and all those. Adam Schlesinger himself writes a song on there. So it's kind of nice. It's a 50th anniversary of the first record. So it's kind of like a nice punctuation. I'm glad they did it. I think it's a lot better than the previous two. So it's a much better end to the legacy, or what would have been the end of their legacy without the Christmas album. You get a posthumous contribution from Davy Jones. He just sings the one track, Love to Love, which was written by Neil Diamond. I think You Bring the Summer by Andy Partridge is really good. She Makes Me Laugh, I think, is such a good song. Like, Rivers, what are you doing giving away these tracks? It is the best song you've written in 30 years. Keep it for yourself, man. What are you giving up this song for? The melody in the chorus, that little run of like 4 notes he does at the end of each line, is so good. Me and Magdalena by Ben Gibbard, I think, is the perfect track for Mike Nesmith to sing. Really good tune. So I don't think it's a record that's going to like set the world on fire or anything, but I think it's a great 50th anniversary celebration of a band that these people admire. And, you know, it kind of sends them off in the right way, rather than just us being the final thing they ever did, which would have been a tragedy. So this is really close to 3.5 stars, but I think it's a 3-star record, but almost 3.5, but pretty good.
All right, well, you made it sound like you're gonna give it like 4.5 stars there. I mean, I got it.
He said one smart thing so far. What is Rivers Cuomo doing giving away a decent song? But that's it.
Anywho, number 8 for me, I'm at 3 stars still, but we'll say a high 3 stars. For More of the Monkees from 67, the follow-up to The Monkees. So now you have more of them. This one has a couple big hits. I'm a Believer, I'm Not Your Stepping Stone. And it's very similar to the first one. It's still just pretty much the Monkees singing. They were fighting for creative control, and they hadn't gotten it yet. It was still pretty much Don Kirshner's show. Still a ton of outside songwriters, although you do have Michael Nesmith with Mary Mary, and a co-write on The Kind of Girl I Could Love. So he's trying to work his way in there. The songs themselves, I don't know, I think production's a little worse on this. It doesn't sound as good. I don't think there's quite as much care given to the songs as the first one. And it's a little too similar. Like, there's no growth. There's nothing new going on here. You get the big hit with I'm a Believer, which is great. Everyone loves that song. But I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of a pale imitation. Davy Jones songs are super weak. Hold On Girl, Look Out, The Day We Fall in Love is all pretty lame. I think he sounds pretty decent on When Love Comes Knocking at Your Door. It's the only one from him I like. And even Nesmith's song, his original Mary Mary, is just okay. It's not that interesting. He'll get much better. So really you're just looking for the hits, and Your Auntie Griselda's kind of fun, but there's no growth here. And I don't even think the Monkees wanted to do this one. I think it was like made without their knowledge, basically. So it's a 3-star album. It's not great. They'll get much better.
All right, number 8 for me is Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited. Salesman. The way they play it, it just sounds like they're trying to do Taxman by the Beatles. It's got like that same little percussive guitar crunch to it. She Hangs Out is really annoying and lame. Lacks punch, snap, anything that a human being would feel listen to music. I will say the bass is pretty damn good on this album, doing everything it can to give these songs life. There's just an emptiness to everything. It's just so vapid and fluffy. Meaningless melodies. The melodies aren't even that catchy to me. I think they're nice, but they go in and out. Like, to me, it's just like someone whistling. They might as well just write pretty good commercial jingles. Like, that's what all these songs are. They're just spread out. Cuddly Toy is just way too jaunty and bouncy and perky for me, and it's almost like one of those granny rockers Paul McCartney would have written, but not nearly as good. The bass work on Words is pretty cool. Words is a pretty cool song. I will give them that. And they, by now, are abandoning a lot of what people refer to as their psychedelic influence, but they're pretty much full on pop rock here by this point. Hard to believe. I've never really liked it all. Just lame bubblegum pop. What am I doing? Hanging around is nice. Michael saves these albums from being down in the 1-star territory. I never liked Pleasant Valley Sunday at all. There's just nothing really here for me. I know I'm being repetitive, but I am very unhappy. That's my number 8. My lists are literally just flip flopped from you guys.
Nilsson wrote Cuddly Toy, by the way, so that's a great song.
I mean, yeah, Harry Nilsson, sure, great, but whatever.
My number 8 is the same as Joe's, more of the Monkees, so we're in lockstep. And yeah, it was rush released without the band knowing, like trying to capitalize on the success of the show, which led Michael Nesmith to lobbying even harder to allow them to play their own instruments, which they eventually on the next record were allowed to do. This record displaced their debut record from the number 1 spot, and it stayed number 1 for 18 weeks. You got a lot of big gun songwriters on this: Neil Sedaka, Carol Bayer Sager, Neil Diamond, and you got more songs by Goffin and King. Still, I think the quality of the tunes on this is a bit of a mixed bag. I absolutely love She, the opening track. I think Hold On Girl is great. Steppin' Stone's great. Look Out, Here Comes Tomorrow is great, which is a Neil Diamond pen track. Sometimes in the Morning's really good. But then you also got a bunch of weaker tracks too, kind of mixed in. Mary Mary by Nesmith, not very good. And I think Michael Nesmith, on the first 2 records, I don't think his songs are great, and I don't think his singing is very good. And then all of a sudden on Headquarters, just like a quantum leap in quality from Nesmith. But here, nothing special. And I'm a believer. It's okay. It's fine. But it was kind of ruined for me by the Smash Mouth version and hearing that all the time. And I think their version sucks, and it made the Monkees version just less enjoyable for me. So not one of my favorite Monkee songs. Of their hits, probably my least favorite one. So I think this is a decent record. It's pretty good. Some of the highs on it are really good. Like my favorite tracks on it, I love. So 3.5 stars for More of the Monkees.
All right, my next number 7 here. I am moving up to 3.5 stars. So I don't dislike it. I think it's a pretty good album that I wouldn't listen to again, probably. Unless we were doing another discography. I don't have time in my life for 3.5 star albums. But I'm going to go back to the beginning with the Monkees. Very well produced, very well written. I think, the outside songwriters that they bring in for all this stuff. The theme from the Monkees and Saturday's Child, I Want to Be Free. They get Goffin and King for Take a Giant Step. I'll Be True to You is Goffin and Titleman. There's a Goffin and King Sweet Young Thing. You got Last Train to Clarksville. So, they're giving the Monkees, who, they're supposed to be the Beatles or whatever. I don't know what the even original premise was, or why they were picked or anything about them, actually, now that I think about it. I just know that they exist, so they got to give them some good songs. They don't let them play anything on it, so they're just singing. So how much is this really an album of the Monkees? Not really. It's a bunch of outside songwriters and professional songwriters writing good songs for a band that may or may not be able to sing well at this point, but they're famous and on a TV show. You need to give them some tunes. And they write good tunes. I think these tunes are much better than More from the Monkees. They really dialed it in. Last Train to Clarksville is great. The Goffin King stuff's real strong. I like the theme from the Monkees. It's catchy. Hey, hey, with monkeys. People say we monkey around. Gets in your head. It's fine. It's a perfect TV show theme song. Fantastic TV show theme song. But, it isn't really an album of the Monkees. It's just sort of them as a figurehead for these songs. And so it can't be a great album. It's a fine album. It's a nice album to listen to, but it just feels a little cheap and a little fake, and I need a little more than just, four people singing professional songs. So 3.5 stars, a low 3.5 stars. But the songs themselves are well written. I mean, you just can't get around that, especially for 1966. This is really early. So I give them a little credit, but they're not like reinventing the wheel or anything here.
My number 7 is Christmas Party, 2 stars. I am very impressed with Mickey's voice as he ages. I actually think it gets pretty badass, and I wish he had different material to work with. Sounds great on the leadoff track, Unwrap You at Christmas. It's got some spirit and vinegar in him. What Would Santa Do is kind of cool. The best thing about this album is it's not like traditional Christmas songs, other than a few. Like there's some pretty interesting choices in here, and Davy Jones only sings 2 songs. Still a lame album, especially like, and I know like they're picking these songs, but he's talking about the Grinch or whatever. And he's like, I'm gonna sock him in the mouth or whatever. It's too much. It's too lame. Cheery kind of rock flavor to it, which isn't too bad. It's got like a party vibe with some nice slow stuff mixed in. I like the Hawaiian Getaway tune, the Christmas song. I like that version of that. Alex Chilton with Jesus Christ in there is pretty cool. Nothing really to hate. Well, the Davy stuff. And then Mickey is doing like a Davy impression on I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. I don't know why he decided to do that. And then Davy ruins Silver Bells. He ruins Christmas for me. And then, yeah, you get McCartney's Jam in there, which I'm sure they were just dying to do. Duh. There's nothing interesting musically going about it. Like, there's never a moment. This is probably the most significant discography we've done where I've hardly ever, like, any of the playing or instrumentation caught my eye or ear, excuse me. But, yeah. And this album is just pretty flat. There's some good bass work throughout. I take that back. A little bit of bass stuff, but compared to every other discography, the musicianship here is just pretty lackluster. And this album is no different. 2 stars. It's poor.
All right. My number 7 is Head, soundtrack from the movie of the same name. Really, it's like an EP that's kind of stretched out. It's 6 full songs that you get of original material. You get also some incidental music and some dialogue mixed in. So it makes for kind of a choppy listening experience. But the full length tunes are, I think, really cool and really interesting. Some of the most interesting stuff they did in their tenure. Porpoise Song, fantastic, written by Goffin and King. It's got that really weightless, kind of floaty, psychedelic feeling to it. Quite Beatlesy. Diddy Diego, I think, is the type of interlude I like it. It's very Monkees-ish. It's kind of taking the piss out of themselves, addressing the idea of them being nothing more than manufactured product, and I think it's funny. Kind of satirical look at themselves as we go along. I think is an incredible folk rock song, just loaded up with guitarists. There's like 7 guitarists on this track. Danny Korchmar, Ry Cooder, Neil Young plays on it. Carole King plays guitar on it. A couple other guys. So I think that song is really, really awesome. Underrated track. You've got Davy doing Daddy's Song, which is another Nilsson tune. I like it. I like it. The song. I like Nilsson's version a lot. And between this and Cuddly Toy, I think this is a lot further from Nilsson's original in quality. I think Cuddly Toy is pretty comparable, but still enjoyable. I think this record has some of their highest highs, but I think the presentation of it just kind of makes it a less enjoyable experience and overall record. But I think Porpoise Song and As We Go Along are worth the price of admission alone. Some of the dialogue and outtakes kind of stuff is pretty fun. So not bad. 3.5 stars.
All right, that's a little lower than I expected for Head. My number 6, number 6, yeah. My number 6 is gonna be Instant Replay, but I'm going up to 4 stars for this. I got to 4-star territory a lot quicker than I expected with the Monkees. Second time through, definitely enjoyed it a lot more than the first. So they grew on me, which is good. That's what you want to see. Instant Replay is the first album after Peter Tork leaves. And I mean, Tork was one of those undersung dudes. Really great multi-instrumentalists. So you definitely notice him when he's gone. He didn't have that many songs that he wrote or that he sung on, but his stuff was pretty interesting, a little more experimental, I think, than the rest of the band. So the sound smoothed out, I think, a little bit even from their masterpieces, the Monkey masterpieces in the middle there. But this album has a bunch of good songs. And some of them were written but like back in 66. So it's sort of like a grab bag of stuff. But other than the Davy Jones stuff, Don't Listen to Linda, I think is again, Davy Jones just comes along and just takes me out of the whole flow. But you get some real nice Michael Nesmith sung stuff on here. I Won't Be the Same Without Her, which is a Goffin King. I think his original stuff, Don't Wait for Me and While I Cry, are pretty darn strong. At this point, he's a pretty good country rock artist, songwriter, and singer. He's thrown some lap steel in there, which is nice to see. Now this album does have one Davy Jones track that totally kicks ass. I don't know how he got Neil Young to friggin' show up, but You and I kicks butt. I mean, Neil Young is there because the solo he drops in is just phenomenal. And even Davy, he gets a little gritty, I think, with the vocals. I think it's one of his best tracks for sure. Teardrop City is really, classic Monkees sounding. It's a strong song. I think it was written in 67 or 66, and it was like 7 albums ago. So they've grown a lot. So I think this one's just missing maybe a bit of that experimentation that Tork brought along, and maybe one too many Davy Jones sung tracks. But it's strong. I really do wish they would write more of their own songs, because the taste that you get of their own material is so strong, and they kind of lapse back into like just relying on Goffin King for everything. So I miss this one's like on the down slope. Like they peak and then they start to come down because they start relying again too much outside influence. But I think it's a pretty good album, good pop for 69. Yeah, 4 stars.
That's way too high, but I am on Team Joe for the rest of the way just because he feels the same way about Davey as I do. My number 6 is a vastly underrated album called Pool It. It is a bad album. It's 2 stars, but it is the 6th best Monkees album because it doesn't sound like 60s Monkees. And it's just one of the most drastic sound changes we've ever done for like the 14 years of interludes or whatever. Like it is just like, holy shit. Like what the hell were they thinking? It's pretty bad in a lot of spots, but there are some things in here that are a little bit worthwhile. And you're right, like a little bit of Peter Cetera in there, maybe even a little bit of like George Harrison, like getting in there with like some of the more rockin' tunes. It's very commercial sounding. I do think Heart and Soul is probably the best song on it. It's very clean cut, nothing flashy. Long Way Home is way too soft rock sounding. It just screams like dentist office material. Davey, like these songs do not highlight. Like you thought Davey was bad with the 60s stuff, the 80s stuff's even worse. Yuck, 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 yuppie, yuck. Same with Secret Heart, just like the worst, lamest, like what's that damn radio call-in show, like Hey Delilah or whatever the hell it is. Just got those terrible vibes to it. Trying to get a little funky and danceable with Getting It, kind of cool. I think you said Depeche Mode. What lead singer did you say? Ringo Starr. I could see that. I kind of dig that analogy. Davey on I'll Love You Forever is just maybe the worst, awful, sentimental crybaby song I've ever heard in my life. I hate it. Every step of the way, getting some of those hard-nosed guitars, and that's what I want with the Monkees, like that harder edge. Like they should be doubling down on these big, just 4-chord, power chord songs. They should be opening for the Scorpions by this time. But Davey ruins the whole album. He literally has a song where he says, "You sewed a button on my shirt one day." Like it's just really lame. It's Goof Troop stuff here. Don't Bring Me Down is okay. She's Moving In with Rico is, I don't know if it's good, but at least it's one of the more interesting things they've ever done. Like, it's got that reggae flair. Probably could have been in the movie Cocktail. And the variety, it doesn't take me much to get a 2-star up into the 6 hole here, but the variety and the non lame 60s nature of it puts it in a 6 hole. It's still a bad album. 2 stars. Cool it. And I still haven't talked about Justice yet.
Well, the song where he says "You sewed a button on my shirt one day" is the Ian Hunter cover, which you should go listen to the Ian Hunter original and hear how he delivers that line and makes it so much cooler.
I'm sure it is, and that's the whole point. Like, they just don't have an instinct for material other than just being this corporate image. And you just, yeah, I'm with you. Ian Hunter, I love him.
Number 6, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorns, Jones Limited. I saw several people guess that this would be my winner. I'm not sure why, because if you know me, you know that if it gets too psychedelic, I'm out. I want the straight pop. I want the opposite of what Cram wants. I want just hooks and melody, and that's it. But for this record, they actually, on Headquarters, they get the control they were after. They're playing the majority of the instruments on that record, and they're writing a lot. And this record is kind of a step back towards more outside writers and more session players again. Micky Dolenz ends up with one of the first 20 Moog synthesizers ever made and brings that to the studio. That appears on a few tracks, which is kind of interesting. Sonically, I think they're getting pretty close to what would be like my ideal sound for them. And then the recordings sound really good, but the songs aren't quite as strong as they could be outside of Pleasant Valley Sunday, which of course I think rules. Michael Nesmith stuff, I think, is in full-blown Birds territory here, to the point where it almost sounds like a different band, like Cram said, but I don't mind that. I like the variety of having multiple members with different personalities bring in different sounds, except the song from Nesmith, Don't Call on Me, which doesn't sound like the Birds. It's just like this gorgeous, lush pop tune, which is really cool. And he sings it in a really different style than he usually does. You've got the like quirky tracks, like the pea popping one, which is kind of like studio experiment goofiness, which I enjoy. I like Cuddly Toy a lot. I like their version of it, but the Nilsson one is a bit better. Hard to Believe is good too. Lovely orchestration. There's a lot of good stuff here, but I think it could use a few more Pleasant Valley Sunday type of tunes, like No Doubt, great memorable choruses. And I think, sort of like what Cram's been saying, I don't feel this way about all of their stuff, but on some, like half of this record is just kind of like pleasant, enjoyable, but doesn't stick with you. And I think this record could use a few more of like super memorable, super sticky type of tunes. 3.5 stars. I think it's good. I like it. I love the sound of 60s music, and this is no different. I could listen to this anytime, put it on, enjoy it, but not their best.
All right. I would have thought that was higher from you. But yes, it does have a touch of psychedelia, so knock that one down. Number 5 is gonna be the Birds, the Beats, and the Monkees from '68. One of seemingly 50 albums they had in '68. It's amazing how much they cram in like a 2-year period, really. 67 and 68. They have so many freaking albums. This one came out after Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones. And I think it shares some of the affinity for experimentation of something like, I mean, I don't want to compare it to like the White Album, but this is like their White Album. And this is about the time they started really just branching off on their own and writing their own stuff. Like, there was very little group dynamic going on. So you get very distinct sounds with the different writers. Nesmith's really leaning into country rock here. Tapioca Tundra, got that strong Birds sound. Sounds a lot like I'll Feel a Whole Lot Better by the Birds from Tambourine Man. You got the Daydream Believer. You got another big hit on here. And the first half, I think, is a little uneven. And I was kind of like, uh-oh, they're falling apart when I was listening through this. Second half, there's a lot better. I think a little more interesting. Even the Davy Jones stuff, I think the poster, he turns in one of his better vocal performances. It's kind of got that like McCartney sort of like grandma rock, but in a good way. P.O. Box 9847 has like a nice Mercy beat, Beatles feel to them, nice swagger. I like Dolenz's singing on the one a lot. And then you get Valerie, which this is my favorite Davy Jones track by far. Like again, he kind of turns up the grit and the grime a little bit. And it's just really cool. You got that incredible, intricate Spanish guitar stuff all over it. There's like big marching band drums, which I love. Like you don't hear that often, like ever really on rock songs. I love it when Fleetwood Mac does it on Tusk, and you got that same like really cool like high school feel to it, which is awesome. Got this big brass all over the place, like, and it just comes out of nowhere. And even Davy Jones like is just kicking butt with his vocals. So that one particularly was just like, what am I listening to here? Is this like a forgotten track or something? No, it's right at the end there. They finished it off with Zor and Zam, which has a nice grandiosity to it. And so this is probably the best Davy Jones album ever, the best he's ever done. Daydream Believer, got Valerie and the poster on here. So it was a cool one. It's a mid 4 stars for me. I thought it was very interesting.
My number 5, I've got Good Times. I had a lousy time listening to it. 2 stars. Right now, Jason is just praying I get to 2.5, which means decent. Do the Monkees have a decent album? So far, no. Harry Nilsson coming in on the title track with Micky. I think their dynamic is pretty cool. Best thing about this album, Davy Jones sings one song, and that's it. You Bring the Summer, pretty lame song. Does my least favorite thing in songwriting history, where it just lists things. It just lists things about summer, lists things you would bring to a picnic. I hate it. The sound is updated. It's not like Just Us or Pool It, where they're buying into the sound of the times. They're just kind of updating their old pop rock vibes here, which is not terrible. She Makes Me Laugh is one of the better songs on here, for sure. Rivers Cuomo should, not have given it away, and they should not have accepted it. Still falls into the same problems as before. Pretty basic, not very interesting to me. Our Own World, I think, is pretty catchy. It's got some of that Beatles kind of vibe, that updated Beatles sound that, I applaud this sound on, the Tears for Fears, Everyone Loves a Happy Ending sound album. So, it sounds kind of cool here. They have a lot more energy and spunk than I would have expected here. Like, they sound pretty vibrant and lively. I will give them that. And then the best song on it, I think, is probably Me and Magdalena, which is really pretty. I like the guitar riff on Whatever's Right. Davy sounds awful on his track, but it's just one. There's literally a track on this album just called Girl, which is the most Monkey things ever. Women never age in the Monkees universe. Birth of an Accidental Hipster is pretty cool, and none of it is really that good, though. 2 stars, number 5.
All right, my number 5 is the debut, the Monkees, mostly session players on this. I kind of disagree with what Joe was saying, though, where he was saying that it couldn't be a great record because it's not them playing. I don't think that makes any difference. It could have been a great record. I don't go 5 stars on it. I don't think it's that good. But, I don't think it was out of the realm of possibility just because they weren't the ones playing the instruments on it. You got 2 songs with Peter Tork on guitar. Outside of that, none of them play any instruments. They're all just singing. 2 songs which were written by Mike Nesmith, which he produced, and those are the ones with Peter Tork on guitar. Everything else was pretty much session players. I love the sound of it. I love the sound of this era of pop. You've got Wrecking Crew guys on the Nesmith tracks. I didn't recognize the names on the other tracks as Wrecking Crew people. They could have been. The Wrecking Crew was a lot of people, but I'm not exactly sure who those session guys were, but a lot of their playing is really great on this. Leon Russell arranged Take a Giant Step, the Goffin and King tune, which was really good. Dolenz and Jones, I think, are both underrated singers. And I think they're a good pairing in the band. You know, Dolenz can do the rock stuff really well, while Jones is good at the sweet and sensitive stuff, the sentimental tunes. And then you got Nesmith there bringing in some country rock flavor from time to time. Last Train to Clarksville, I think, is classic. Just a great guitar parts from Wayne Irwin and Jerry McGee. Great backing vocals from Tork and Jones. Just a classic tune. The Monkees theme, I think, really good as well. Those two being the most well-known songs on this record. I really liked I Want to Be Free, though. Kind of a tender tune from Davy Jones. Take a Giant Step, I think, is great. And I like the kind of silliness thrown in on the record. Gonna Buy Me a Dog at the end, where they're kind of just like bantering back and forth, laughing their way through the song. I think is great. It kind of reflects the hijinks of the TV show. And I don't know. There's a few tracks on this record that, don't feel quite as much like, they don't feel like quite as much care was put into them as some of the best tracks here. A few of them feel a little just like thrown together. We're putting together a record for, whatever. So not all of it is highlights, but I think the good stuff is really good. A really good 60s pop record, and the highlights are great. The theme song and Clarksville are just classic pop tunes. So it's a strong 3.5. We're getting pretty close to 4 stars now.
Well, if I may ask, you say that there could be an album where the players don't play any of the instruments, and it's a great album. Does that album exist? Is there anyone better than the first Monkees album?
I don't know. I mean, Pet Sounds.
Theoretically, it's possible, but it's never been done before. I can't think of any example where
Pet Sounds, right? They just sing on Pet Sounds. They don't play anything, do they?
Well, yeah, okay, but that's a little different. You have a supreme god genius, Brian Wilson. So I guess, okay, fine, it's possible. It happened one time in the history.
There's probably other examples, but I don't know. I mean, a lot of that stuff was like pre-LP era, like all the Phil Spector stuff. Those are all session people, and a lot of the 60s pop stuff, but a lot of that wasn't packaged as like LPs.
Right. Well, I'm sure our commenters will correct me if there is an example somewhere. My number 4 is going to be Head. Difficult album because there's only 6 songs that are actual songs on it, but the songs rule. And as much as I hate the stupid little interludes and interstitial whatever vignette little jokey garbage, written in part by Jack Nicholson, which is very odd, but it doesn't improve them. They still stink. But you have Porpoise Song, which is incredible. One of Goff and King's absolute best. The vocals from Dolenz are phenomenal, and Davy Jones is in there too. And I think when they're together, it really kind of eases the edges of Davy Jones's like annoyingness, and they sound really great when they're harmonizing and singing together. You got a ton of big session players on the album. On Porpoise Song, you got Danny Kochmar and Leon Russell on keyboards. Michael Nesmith goes all in with Circle Sky. I think it's a really good, simple, gritty, hard rock almost song from him. He plays guitar on it as well, and organ. So a pretty good example of his growth as a songwriter. Can You Dig It is a really good Peter Tork number, along with long title, Do I Have to Do This All Over Again? You really get a sense of what Peter Tork could have done. It's another thing, like, I don't understand why he didn't have more songs, because every song he writes is really cool, really interesting. Long Title, Do I Have to Do This All Over Again is amazing. The guitar work, Stephen Stills guests on it and does some really great stuff, livens it up. I think Daddy's Song's pretty darn good. I don't mind Davy Jones at all on that. It helps that Harry Nilsson wrote it, obviously. And sort of the lightweight music is a nice juxtaposition with like the undertones of abandonment and daddy issues and all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on with this album under the surface, and it's a really good work. I wish it was like a full album with like 3 or 4 more songs. I think it could have been, their Pet Sounds, not like Pet Sounds, but like their version of kind of like the ultimate Monkees. Instead, we get a pretty darn good album that has some annoying blemishes on it, but some really good songs as well. So 4 stars for Head.
My number 4 is Justice. 2 stars. Still bad, but better because it's not annoying. It's just bad. The other ones are bad and annoying. This one's just bad. Really weird opening with the remake of Circle Sky. Nice and heavy, getting like those alternative bar rock kind of feels from the mid-90s. Sounds kind of like Neil Young and the Outlaws kind of mashing up. The electric guitars are really straight ahead and attitude kind of taking shape. It's like they finally had sex or something and like figured that out. I don't know. There's just a little bit more like visceralness to this. Micky is even being a bit sexy on Never Enough. It's kind of cool. A little bit of lust in there. I don't know. And then Davy insists on coming in with the next song and just totally neuters it down. Comes in with "Oh What a Night," just ruining all the fun that I was having with this album. I was like almost thinking it was just a lousy, like shitty bar rock grunge album, but then I was like, oh no, wait, here's Davy Jones. This is pathetic. Same with the song "You and I," although Neil Young for sure. Then you get a little bit of good bass work on this album. That to me is the very dim star of the show with the musicianship. Unlucky Stars is just terrible sounding. The low end of the piano is so weird and rubbery or something. I don't know what's going on. Then you get Admiral Mike, which is like not obnoxiously heavy in the weird realm, but when I'm listening to Monkees, all of a sudden it's like, what the hell is going on here? Like they're ultra caffeinated or something. You just get these big crunching riffs, and Micky is doing this weird little sneer job on his vocals. Is pretty cool. Dying of a Broken Heart, a little cooling, a little goofy, a little bit of cool guitar work, which you can't say much. Regional Girl almost has like the ZZ Top boogie rock kind of quality, and all the Davy stuff is just terrible. I Believe You is kind of weird and artsy for them. Has like this deconstructed jazzy kind of composition to it. And then It's My Life is not terrible. So yeah, that's the best I can say. Is it's a little bit interesting. They're trying new things, which is what I wanted them to do for the first like 9 albums of this thing. But it's still bad. And if you ask Jason, it's really bad.
Yep, it sucks. My number 4 is Headquarters. This was the first one where they play the bulk of the instruments themselves. Came out, was number 1 for 1 week before being bumped to number 2 by Sgt. Pepper's, and then it spent 11 weeks at number 2. I think it's pretty impressive. Like, I don't think if you gave someone who had no, experience listening to the Monkees before and just played them the albums in sequence and asked them to guess where the session players, took a step back and when it was mostly the Monkees playing themselves, I think it'd be pretty hard to tell when the change occurred. I don't think there's really a drop off in musicianship or anything like that on this record. I think it sounds a bit better than the first 2 records, and I think the sound is more consistent throughout the record, which I think was a little bit of an issue on the second record more from the Monkees, where I felt like you could sort of see that the songs were being pulled from like different sessions and they were just like cobbling it together. But there's a consistent sound throughout this record, which I think it lends to the album feel. Nesmith's vocal contributions here, I think, are much improved. As I mentioned earlier, I don't love his vocals on the first 2 records much. But here, I think he's rising to almost Dolenz equal as far as rock vocals go. You Just May Be the One, I think, is a great track written by him as well. Zilch is great. I love these like little 60s studio goofing around type of things. I will say that the record probably lacks the high highs of the first 2 records, though. Songs like Clarksville and Steppin' Stone and stuff like that. I don't know if there's really a song quite as great as those on here. You do have, some really strong songs, especially on side 1. You Told Me is really good. Forget That Girl's really good. The Nesmith song that I mentioned, You Just May Be the One, really strong. Side 2, I think, considerably weaker. Randy Scow's Git is a strong closer. So yeah, this is another one like on the cusp of 4 stars. I'll go 4 for this one, but yeah, a light 4 for Headquarters.
Okay. Number 3, I got The Monkees Present from '69. Another one where I think at one point they were going to make a double album. Each side would be one band member. But Tork was gone at this point, so they decided to do a single disc. And this is the last one with Michael Nesmith, and it kind of shows because he is just shooting off on his own trajectory. His country rock really takes it to another level here. Good, clean fun. Listen to the band. He brings in all sorts of Nashville session players. He gets Lloyd Green, who would play on Sweetheart of the Rodeo, Wayne Moss, David Briggs, Jerry Kerrigan, Norbert Putnam, and Buddy Spiker. So he's got like the best of the best Nashville session players backing him up. And the tunes are great. The tunes are really strong that he brings, the lyrics, the melodies, everything. Then when you add these incredible players, it just, it's really great, top of the line country rock. And he would leave to do his own stuff with the First Nashville Band soon after. And I think, that was probably for the best because he had outgrown the Monkees at that point. But the Micky Dolenz stuff is good too. Little Girl, Bye Bye Baby Bye Bye is a really strong tune. Looking for Good Times. And If I Knew, Davy Jones numbers on the first side are pretty decent. I mean, he's still obviously like the third best singer, the third best, at anything in the band. But he's a little less annoying, I think, at this point. I don't mind him nearly as much. And Micky Dolenz throws in a track, Mommy and Daddy, which is actually pretty cool. Talking about, overt political statement about treatment of American Indians and drugs and war and all this kind of unmonkey subject matter. That, it's another one between this and Randy Scouse Git, like two really good songs. And I would like to have seen a little bit more like songwriting from him. Every time he does something, it's interesting, unique. And not quite enough. I want more Dolenz. I want more Micky Dolenz in my Monkees. And so it's just a good album. Like all these songs are really strong. Oklahoma Backroom Dancer is really good. And the two Nesmith ones, Good Clean Fun and Listen to the Band, are probably his two best songs. So that really elevates it. Still 4 stars only. I'm not going any higher, but some really cool stuff on this one.
Okay, rounding out my top 3, I've got Headquarters, 2 stars and a half. There you go. Merry Christmas, Jason. I feel like the sound here is a little bolder, a little richer. I'll Spend My Life With You has a nice transient quality. The songs on here are just a little bit more intricate and less annoying to me. A little bit less predictable. And you get some of that country folk like in that song I just mentioned, which I like. Everything in that nice and sweet, still kind of plain for me. Like, Jason, it's just pop music. What's the big deal? Like, you just said yourself, all I need is a melody and a hook, and I'm good to go. You need more than that. You need emotion. You need human behavior. Too jolly, preppy, peppy, melodic, sure. But what else? Like I said, I don't even think they're well-written songs. A melody not make a song. Melody makes a melody. So I got 2 separate words, Jason. I feel really mad at you right now, and I don't think you deserve it. There's no attitude, no statement. It's vapid to me. And, I like the piano and the violin on Shades of Grey, but why aren't they doing these sort of like different instrumentations more often? I Can't Get Her Off of Mind is really annoying with that bouncy smiliness. Same with For Pete's Sake. Don't really think they have a lot of tact or haunted ability for pulling off Mr. Webster the way they want. And then Sunny Girlfriend is a bit of a Paul McCartney knockoff. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't know why I went up to 2.5, but I'll keep it there, I suppose. Headquarters, number 3, 2.5.
All right, number 3 is Instant Replay. I think I saw that this was their only record from the original run that didn't have any songs that were featured in the TV show. Peter Tork's not on this one, so it's kind of like, at least commercially speaking, in terms of the way people think about the Monkees, it's kind of them past their prime. But I think they do kind of a smart thing here. They go back into the vaults and pull out some old tunes for this one. About half of this record was recorded, with previously for other record sessions. But I think the old songs they dip back to are mostly really good, and the new stuff I think is really, really good too. Me Without You is one of the new ones. Really reminds me of Your Mother Should Know, especially the little backing vocal thing they do in the chorus. I really love the guitar solo on it, really cool. You and I, another new one, and another featuring Neil Young on guitars you guys have mentioned. You also got some of the, Wrecking Crew A-Team on it, Hal Blaine, Joe Osborne, Larry Knechtel. Pretty cool rocker sung by Davy, going a bit beyond his usual sweet ballads. While I Cry is a gorgeous tune from Mike Nesmith, written by Boyce and Hart. Very, very Gene Clark-esque. Yeah, for sure. Definitely hear a lot of Gene in the later Nesmith compositions. Teardrop City is one from the earlier sessions that doesn't work as well for me. It sounds way too much like a ripoff of Last Train to Clarksville. Just seems like the entire goal of writing that song was let's repeat that song. So that one I don't love, but the rest of the record's pretty solid. You've also got A Man Without a Dream, which I think is one of Davy Jones's greatest vocal performances. Great track, produced by Bones Howe. All in all, I think pretty solid, not entirely perfect, but for being an album pretty much void of hits and like songs that your everyday person might know, I think there's quite a bit of great material here, a lot to be discovered. It's a little weird in that some of it's pulled from the past and it's not entirely, seamless. I think you can kind of tell like these are older songs, these are newer songs a little bit, which maybe detracts a little bit, but mostly not. 4 stars for Instant Replay.
All right, up to number 2. My number 2 is going to be Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited. Second album, third album in 67. After Headquarters, which they finally got some control over the music, and then they give it right back. I guess they were tired. They were doing the show. They didn't have time to write songs and do all that crap. Which kind of a missed opportunity, because I think they could have really done something cool if they had kept up with their own songwriting and everything. But we get this album, which is a very strong 4 stars for me. Shows off, I guess it shows off mostly Michael Nesmith's growth. It shows off Peter Tork's instrumentation. And I think the songs are just really good. Salesman, She Hangs Out, The Door into Summer, all really strong. Chip Douglas does The Door into Summer. He was in the Turtles for about 5 minutes, and they brought him over to produce. Jeff Barry does She Hangs Out. You got a Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, Love's Only Sleeping. You got Harry Nilsson with Cuddly Toy, which is about gangbangs, by the way, which is awesome. And Goff and King doing Pleasant Valley Sunday, and Star Collector. So a nice little track about groupies and the growing problem that they would present, which is kind of funny. A little pre-superstar anti-groupie song, which is kind of funny, but a good song nonetheless. Odd coming from Goffin and King. I wouldn't have thought that they would have done something like that. You got some country tinge stuff like Daily Nightly and Salesman. Love Is Only Sleeping is really beautiful. He definitely channels some Gene Clark on that. Nesmith plays guitar, has a nice lead, great vocals, sorry, from Nesmith. And I like the backing vocals from the rest of the group. You got that birdsy kind of folky country rock, which I really like. Cuddly Toy's great. I love the subversiveness of it, slipping it into a Monkees album. That's great. Another birdsy amalgamation with What Am I Doing Hanging Round. And you just got like a perfect pop song with Pleasant Valley Sunday. And another one with Star Collector, which you get some Moog on. Love that Moog. Can't get enough Moog. So that's a nice little addition. I believe this is one of the earliest albums with Moog on it, which is cool. And I think the only thing holding this back from number 1 would be just the consistency. You have so many outside songwriters that I don't know, it just doesn't always feel like a definitive statement from the band. But that's fine. I mean, that's not what they were about. And I think they they're just a good band. They're not a great band. I'm not going to ever say that they were a great band, but I think they were a good band much better than somebody like Three Dog Night or some of these other kind of fake bands that just use outside songwriters. I think they have a lot more personality, and you can definitely see that with these songs and the different way that they interpret them, and the lead vocals and everything. So I think it's a cool album, especially for 1967 and how early it was. So 4 stars for whatever the hell, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited.
Joe, name dropping Chip Douglas, but not the character from My Three Sons. That's good to know. And you bring up a winning idea here. Maybe the next judge and jury should be Monkees versus Three Dog Night, because you said that, and I was like, man, I don't know who I like less. Like Three Dog Night is probably blander but less annoying. That's tough, but they are similar in the fact that they just exist for some reason and they just get handed material. I don't get it. Jason, I remember when Jason was cool when we were younger. Number 2 for me is more of the Monkees. 2.5. Don't know why I gave it that high of a score, but I'm sticking with it. I think She is kind of cool. I think the album has a bit more of an authentic touch and isn't so radio wannabe. Like they're not dying to be the next Beatles quite as much here. When Love Comes Knocking at Your Door, I think is a pretty well written little gem, but I just hate the singing on it. I hate Davy Jones. Mary, Mary, I cannot stand either. It's just the weak, no bite Beatles wannabe boy band fluff shit, and I don't like it. Hold On Girl, Davy again. I like the keys on this song, but Davy just doesn't do it for me. Your Auntie Griselda, probably the most interesting thing on here for me. I don't know if I like it, but at least it's interesting. These are the qualities that I need right now. There's just too much of that jolly, shit-eating grin, jubilation, boy band kind of stuff, ear to ear, tongue in cheek, a little bit at times. And I've read some stuff about how, the really affectionate, fluffy positivity kind of counteracts some of the more satirical satire in the songwriting. And, first of all, that doesn't make a difference because they don't write their shit. So, like, why? And I don't even see it. I don't feel it. I feel nothing. Believer, I've never cared for. I do like Neil Diamond, though. Can't wait to do Neil Diamond one day because I think I like Neil Diamond more than anyone else on this channel. Sometime in the Morning is pretty, but like I listened to it and I'm like, man, this would be so much better if this like were done by the Velvet Underground or Nico or something like that. Sorry, Joe. Songs are a bit better here on this album than the previous one. Everything is slightly better, so my score is slightly better. It's my second favorite album, 2.5 for more of the Monkees. And it looks like we have a trifecta. No, not even close. I don't even remember what you guys have left, but let's get Jason's number 2 first.
Well, one of the ones I have left is the Monkees Present. 1969, a good year for the Monkees, if not commercially, at least creatively. I think they put out some pretty interesting stuff with Instant Replay and this record. Again, Tork out of the band at this point, so it's just the three of them. Little Girl is great. You've got legend Earl Palmer on drums, amazing guitar from Louis Shelton. I think some of those guitar lines that he's playing on that track are super cool. Then you get a great country tune from Mike Nesmith with Good Clean Fun. I think he continues to make better and better tunes. He brings in the great Bobby Thompson on banjo. You've got Listen to the Band from him here as well, which I think is awesome. French Song is really cool and really different. Unlike anything else in the catalog, it's like got this cool kind of jazzy feel with flute from Tim Weisberg. Mommy and Daddy, I think, is an insanely dark song from Micky Dolenz, just really different subject matter. I think overall the record's really mature. Each member, I think, coming into their own. They're kind of like splitting off into camps here, doing their own thing. Like Joe mentioned, the original concept was for them to each have their own side of a record and basically have 4 like mini solo EPs together. And that's kind of how it feels, even though it's kind of mixed up in a single record instead of a double. But there definitely doesn't seem to be a ton of collaboration happening between the 3 of them. But it still works. I think it's cool. Pretty consistent throughout. There's a few clunkers on it, like Ladies Aid Society, which I think is kind of lame. But other than that, it's mostly really good. 4 stars for the Monkees Present.
All right. Number one, Monkees. I'm going with Headquarters. My number one. I'm at a high 4 stars for this one. And this is when the Monkees got control. I mean, they pushed out Don Kirshner, said they weren't going to do it like they were doing before. They wanted to write their own songs, they wanted to play on their songs. And it turns out that was a good move because they're surprisingly good at all of this stuff. I think Peter Tork really comes into his own. He's playing organ and celeste and banjo and all sorts of instruments. And I think the keyboards on this album are great. I think Nesmith's songs really take a big step forward. You Told Me, which is great. I mean, it's definitely in that like Bird's realm, and it's not the most unique sound, but he was one of the forefathers kind of pushing country rock in that direction. So a lot of credit to him. I'll Spend My Life With You is another one. You got Nesmith on steel guitar. You got Tork playing 12-string organ and celeste. Got some really nice harmony vocals from Tork behind Dolenz' lead. Shades of Grey, you got Davy Jones with one of his better songs. You got some cello and French horn. It's the only track that brings in outside musicians. Very like left bank sounding. For Pete's Sake has like almost raga guitar. I don't think it's quite like to that level. It's not like Bird's, 8 miles high or anything like that, but it's kind of close to it. Some really nice group vocals. Dolenz really great lead, especially at the end where he's like straining to hold the notes. Sounds really great. Mr. Webster's got this kind of Paul McCartney meets, it's like Paul McCartney's intimate eye for detail meets John Lennon's sort of darker, mordant wit, which is really cool. No Time has some great R&B spirit. Early Morning Blues and Greens has this really cool electric piano line. And then Randy Scouse Git, I think, is Dolenz' best work ever. It's got this really loud chorus with this awesome organ to it. Dolenz is just like yelling at the top of his lungs. It's totally nuts, but in a really cool way, and really makes me wish there was more Micky Dolenz written tunes, because this one totally kicks ass. And I just think all of these songs and all of the players on here, even Davy, I think Forget That Girl, which was written by Chip Douglas, is pretty cool. It's a little darker. I think Davy Jones has really good vocal work on it. It's not like that cloying, annoying, like puppy dog love kind of vocal. And when he wants to get away with that, he can get away from that. He definitely can. And obviously he falls into that sort of like lame, too poppy track a little too often, but that was their bread and butter, and you can't fault them for wanting to make a lot of money and sell a lot of hits. So I don't blame Davy Jones completely, but yeah, I think Headquarters is really cool. I wish they had done a lot more. I wish they had kept going with their own writing and playing a lot more. Kind of disappointing that this was really the only album where they did that to like the full scope of all of their talents. So 4 stars. I think it's very good. We're not talking about Beatles. We're not talking about Birds or Dylan or Stones or any like the big dogs, but I think just under them, you got the Monkees with some real cool stuff in the late 60s here.
2.5 is my top score for changes. Micky takes the lead on most of this, thank God. Micky's cadence and delivery on Oh My God is pretty damn cool, and the guitar is cool too. He definitely has the rock cred of the group, and I think they should have explored that more. Jason is right. Ticket on the Ferry Ride is pretty damn good. It has some really nice playing on it, some good harmonies. And then you get You're So Good to Me. Cool guitar, almost has like this Grateful Dead kind of feel to it. There's more attitude on this album. Like, I know, like, you guys are complaining that it didn't sound very Monkees, and that's what I want. I don't want it to sound like the Monkees. And this is the farthest you get from it without being too crazy, like on Cool It or Justice. But, even like It's Gotta Be Love has like a pleasant jaunt to it, good piano, Tell Me Love is quite nice. There's more craft and detail in the building of these songs. They aren't just stopping at the pretty melodies. They are allotting sense into the composition of the meanings of the songs, carrying the weight of the emotion throughout, not just like coming up with a quick ditty and making it last 2 minutes. It's pretty nice. Not just random whistling melodies to random words with background music of the 60s, which is kind of how I feel. Do You Feel It? Pretty nice. I hated Midnight Train, and I hated I Never Thought It Peculiar, ending with terrible Davy stuff, so it doesn't end well. Didn't have a chance at 3 stars. I don't think they come close to a good album. And with more listens, these will probably go down in scores. Like, I can't believe I don't have a 1-star review here. But Changes is my favorite because it is the least Monkees album. Kind of like when Jason gave the first Bleach was his favorite Nirvana album, right? It's kind of one of those scenarios.
I mean, yeah, Bleach was my favorite Nirvana album. I don't think that's the same scenario.
I name dropped Nirvana so people would just be interested in this video because the Monkees suck, dude.
All right. My number 1 is the Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees. You know, the show had been canceled, had flopped in theaters, and the band basically pulling apart in different directions, each member producing their own sessions. So kind of in a way, the band is just like falling apart here. But somehow, I don't know, they cobble something together. It works really well. Chip Douglas's production is really good. Daydream Believer is an all-time great pop song. I absolutely love it. I think it's great. Valerie, another big hit. Killer guitars on that track. And then, like Joe mentioned, the big brass is awesome. Tapioca Tundra, I think, is a great Nesmith tune. Love the vocal effect on his voice. I'll Be Back Up on My Feet is a great Dolenz highlight. I think that's a really good song. The Poster and P.O. Box 9847, I think, are both super catchy. Magnolia Sims is like this weird 20s jazz thing, which I think is great. They have like the record scratching effect on it, which is really cool. You know, the album has your big marquee hits. You've got some Davy ballads as well. You got some good rockers from Dolenz. And I think even the weirder excursions on this work pretty well, like Magnolia Sims. I think everything is just really good on it. I think it's their most consistent record for sure. It's got a nice variety as well. I think it sounds really good. I think it's just a really strong record. They get away a little bit from the psychedelia that was creeping in on the couple previous records and go back to a little bit more of like sunshiny pop. And that's just what I want. I love it. I think they do it really well. It's well executed. Just a good, strong 60s pop record. So 4 stars, a strong 4 for the Birds and the Bees.
I'm sorry I was so hard on you. Thank you for not going off the deep end with a 4.5 and 5-star. Yeah, I apologize. No, I don't. Never mind. You didn't have anything to do with this. Don't take it personally.
I can just sit here confident in my assessment of this band and don't have to worry about you.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go well for Kramzer after this one. This isn't like Three Dog Night where we all agree that they just suck and are useless. Like the Monkees have some fans, some defenders here.
Well, yeah, I mean, people literally paid me to shit on them right now. They're not going to like that.
They know it's coming. There's no mystery here.
I will supplement our income if we lose Patreons from this. Excuse me.
So the Monkees, I think, are not a great albums band, and that's why they didn't get to 4.5 or 5 stars. But I think they're a great songs band, and I think that's different than being a great singles band because I think they have a lot of great songs beyond their singles. I think their records are loaded with a lot of really good songs, but they never quite strung together for me 10 or 12 in a row where the whole thing was good start to back. Like, I think every record has its flaws. There's weak tracks on all of them, which keep them from getting to the really great, heights of the great bands. But I think, their good songs are great. They got a lot of great songs, a lot of great hits, and a lot of great unknown deep cuts. So for me, highly enjoyable. And I was glad we did it. Let us know what you think of the Monkees. If you fall closer to me and Joe, or if you hate them like Cram does, let us know. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Leave a comment with your ranking as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.